Houston will need to win or a loss by the Colts to clinch a playoff spot. With more on the matchup, here's Chris Rim.
Saturday's game against the Houston Texans is somewhat personal for quarterback Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Last year, the Chargers' season came to a screeching halt in Houston, as the Texans' defense forced Herbert to throw a career-high 4 interceptions in the playoff loss. It's a game that Herbert said still sticks with him. Now the Chargers have a shot at redemption, as Herbert is playing some of the best football of his career under coach Jim Harbaugh and leading a team that believes it's built differently and learned from its mistakes in Houston. With a win over the Texans, the Chargers set up a matchup with the Denver Broncos in Week 18 for the AFC West crown, a feat the Chargers have not accomplished since 2009.
In this matchup, this is a really good, interesting game.
Yeah. There is no secret to what the Houston Texans defense is, which is why I think Justin Herbert's legs is going to have to be a big part of what the Chargers have the ability to do from an offensive standpoint. And if he's real decisive in taking off, and I know the hand injury, but even when we were there in LA a few weeks ago, y'all, he decided to pull the ball down and run the football. We know what this pass rush is like with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, and this team comes up and hits. So I want Justin Herbert to get down after he gets his yardage. But there will be these critical third downs that happen. There will be the times where he obviously has to use his arm, but there'll be times where Derek Stingley and Lassiter will take things away, and Justin Herbert may have to pull it down and go get some yardage with his legs. I want to see how impactful that is as the game goes throughout.
Swagger, that's a great point, because every team I talk to after they play Houston, they say the same thing, that we are beat dang up. They are the most physical team in the league. Every team says that. And so that's what's fascinating about this matchup, because how much is Herbert going to run, knowing that Houston doesn't really feel like they have to blitz a whole lot because they have those 2 elite pass rushers. They come off the edge, and so Herbert, if he's tempted to run, they're just going to wait for him, and then they're going to hit him 4 or 5 yards downfield with no problem. So he's had the hand injury issue. He's played beat up. We know he's tough, but how tough is he going to have to be to get through this game?
Yeah, it's funny, right? You see the Chargers and the Texans, and you immediately think, who, those offensive lines against those defenses? The difference, I would argue, is that the Texans' offensive line has been a little bit better this year. I'm not totally bought in, but you're seeing some improvement. They're able to actually pick up a blitz. And that's where I'm looking at this Chargers pass rush and looking at them to step up. Look, they're not the Texans pass rush. They don't have Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. But they do have a pretty nasty 4-man rush. And ever since they traded for Odafe Owe back in Week 8, they are 4th league-wide in 4-man pressure rate. When Owe, Khalil Mack, and Tuli Pelotu are on the field together, they put Tuli inside, they're getting a 54% pressure rate, according to Next Gen Stats, which is very high. So, if I'm Houston, as much as that offensive line has improved, that is something that I am concerned about. I do think they need to find a way to run the ball against this team to try to keep CJ out of 3rd and long.
Yeah, the Texans have already won 10 games.
Even if Denver beats Kansas City, as they likely will, Week 18 could be a really big game for LA, assuming they win this. So both teams have strong incentive. You have the Texans, I have the Chargers. This is the battle of the bad offensive lines, although Texans? You can go first on the Texans. What is your key for this one?
Yeah, my key is how well CJ Stroud continues to play against pressure, and if that continues in this game for the Chargers. A lot has been written and said, a lot of it by me, about Justin Herbert against pressure right now, and deservedly so. He's been lights out. However, since CJ Stroud came back from injuries, this is the last 4 weeks since Week 13, he is 2nd EPA per dropback when pressured. He has a positive EPA per dropback when pressured, which is preposterous. He's 3rd in success rate. He is 5th in CPOE. All those numbers, he's still top 10 in over the course of the season. Stroud looks very, very much so like 2023 Stroud, not so much 2024 Stroud. 24 Stroud was like, this guy's uncomfortable in the offense. He does not like being in the pocket. This version of Stroud right now is much more so like, I'm unlocked. Like, I get to grip and rip it. I get to make aggressive throws. I will throw contested balls. Like, I trust my receivers and what have you. The system isn't nearly as good as 23 and the ancillary cast, but in general, the guy who we all kind of fell in love with that rookie year, he feels very much so back in terms of play style and disposition. Now, the Chargers, very sneakily, become a good pressure team.
This is my key for the Chargers. So can I jump in here?
Please, go ahead.
Since Week 8, 4th in pressure rate with a 4-man rush. Week 8 is when they did the trade. The Gilman Owe trade is like, ultimately probably what, the Ravens aren't going to be in the playoffs. One of the more interesting, like, football just pure football trades of the season because both teams got better from it.
And it's very funny because
yeah.
obviously the connection between the teams, right? Joe Ortiz is
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
Ravens front office of the Harbaugh brothers. It feels very much so like a listen.
Yeah,
you know,
you
a lot
need
of times,
this, we need
a lot
this.
of times with trades, like I'm trying to
Yeah.
get off from you, and like no, I
No,
need a fourth.
it
This
wasn't
was
like that at all. Yeah.
Let me help you. I got some sugar.
Yeah.
You got some firewood. Let's survive the Oregon Trail together.
It really worked. And I know for Ravens fans, it must be infuriating because he has been better with the Chargers than he was with the Ravens. And also the Ravens really don't have much of a pass rush. But it's not like he was this guy. And some of it might be like scheme related a little. I think a decent amount of it is actually what they're asking out of their pass rushers. But in any case, back to the Chargers. So since that trade, they've been really good. Sometimes they'll put him, Mack, and Thule on the field together on pass rush downs, and that's been really effective. The 4-man rush matters, I would argue, because one of the most shocking developments of 2025 is the Houston Texans figured out how to pick up blitzes.
I never doubted. I held my stock for so long. I promise.
Now, wait, you know what, though? You do not take that. I'm trying to think, who are they most likely to match up in the playoffs? I just feel like, I guess there's not, who's a great pass rush team?
Denver.
Well, this is a good test because, I think the other thing I'll say about the Texans offense, you talked about how good they are under pressure. The Charger defense is a lot better at defending outside the numbers in the middle of the field. Throws to the middle of the field, they are 23rd in success rate. On in-breakers, they're also 23rd in success rate. Those are basically what CJ Stroud measures in. I like Cam Hart, who's, I guess he's their biggest corner. I assume he's going to be on Collins a fair amount. I still don't love him against Nico Collins on crossers and posts and whatnot. So,
which that's the sort of guy that he
rush.
tends to do the best at. Cam Hart, he's really physical. Like he has his good days against his T. Higgins and the George Pickens. Like that's kind of where he's at his best. I love a Cam Hart. I'm excited about a Cam Hart. This is a tricky matchup for the Chargers though, because Cam Hart is like, they have Cam Hart on the roster to be like, all right, and when we need to go big, we have Cam Hart, and they have Benjamin St. Juste as well, but he's generally not been like, kind of like the caliber of corner they were hoping for. The problem is the Texans could just go big on you and then go big on you again and then go big on you again. Like Tarheeb Still and Dante Jackson are in a really bad spot against the Xavier Hutchinsons and the Jaden Higgins of the world, right? Like that's the thing about the Texans being so supersized is even if you feel like, we have a good physical matchup here at corner, they can get to wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, tight end 1, and still be successful. If you look at how this Texans passing offense has succeeded, it's funny. They're one of these teams that's become, play action heavy and heavy personnel heavy, but they still throw it like more short and intermediate. They just don't have without Tank Dell, without Christian Kirk kind of having speed. They don't really have like the deep element in the team. Obviously Nico is still so good that way, but they're using him more, like you said, on slants and digs. And so if you are the Chargers, you can, I think, be really aggressive, packing the intermediate zones, asking your safeties to step down, drill down Tony Jefferson, trigger and fire, Elijah Molden, trigger and fire. And we're gonna try to hit you over the middle, and then you're daring the Texans and Stroud and Nico to beat you deep. And now it becomes a 3 deep balls. Do you connect on 2 of them sort of a game? I think that's probably where you end up with the Chargers coverage, because then CJ has to hold the ball for a while, and you like your pass rush's ability against this offensive line.
One of the things that drives me to this type of work is just being able to influence.
Wow, it's funny. I just looked up Woody Marks's availability just to confirm he's still uncertain for this game, and I learned his actual name is Jacavius. Did you know that?
Yep. Yeah. Which these are the weird things. Like during the draft process, you just learn everybody's real name and all their nicknames.
Okay, Jacavius DeQuain, because Woody doesn't. There's no really.
Yeah, but I think when your first name is Jaquavius, they're looking for something to call you that's not Jaquavius, and you end up getting a Woody. Right?
I love Woody as a nickname. Yeah. It's such a. Well, I guess I worked with Woody Page forever.
Yeah, my sense on the Woody Marks, because a lot of people thought Marks would go against the Raiders, and he didn't. My sense was that he didn't go against the Raiders, such that they'd be very confident in his health for this game. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think it's important that they can. I mean, with the Chargers, they're gettable on the ground. I don't think you're going to get many explosive runs per se, but you want to be able to run on 3rd and short and whatnot. So that's something to keep an eye on. The flip side, I mean, it always comes down to the same stuff, right? Justin Herbert against the Cowboys was both a referendum on how bad the Cowboys defense is. And I think it took people a second to accept that they weren't fixed at all. And that continues. But also, he was just unbelievable in that game, lights out, making some of the just most ridiculous throws you'll see.
Yeah, you absolutely cannot take a passing game against the Cowboys defense seriously. We have seen over the course of the year, given how quarterbacks have performed against them, that it is aberrative. It is not reflective of how good they are. With that said, holy Moses, that was sick. I mean, it just versus pressure, 9 for 11, versus blitz, 13 for 17, 0 to 9 yards, hit 2 incompletions. Down the field, he was 8 for 10. Just screw you for 4 quarters. Just in your face, in your mouth for 4 quarters. It was unbelievable.
They blitzed him so much, which like is so sad. If you have to, but also like if you have to blitz the Chargers, you're not a good, like that's a very sad state of affairs for your defense. The Texans won't blitz. Texans don't have to blitz. The Texans are going to show up and kick ass. And that worries me. The Chargers against Dallas, they like tried out, they had a lot of jumbo. They were like they really leaned into pass protection for Herbert, which is fine. And you could take a similar approach against the Houston Texans. But the problem is if you're only sending a couple, 2 or 3 pass catchers out there, they'll just lock him down. I do not have I'm very skeptical about the Chargers offense here.
Yeah, if you look at how opposing offenses have played the Texans, like the Texans aren't actually very high this year in overall team pressure rate. They're right around league average. And it's because the ball comes out really, really fast, right? That's people like the people are so scared of the pass rush that they try to get to the quick game. Ball's out in 2.92 seconds against the Texans defense, the 8th fastest. 45% of dropbacks under 2.5 seconds, which is anecdotally what we'd call quick game, is right, everything under 2.5. That's the 6th highest rate. And so this is actually the sort of game where I think you want to have 4 in the concept, 5 in the concept, a little bit more. Give Herbert the ability to pre-snap, figure out where the soft spot is in the zone, where the cornerback's aligned. I'm going to take my quick lad throws. I'm going to take my quick Keenan Allen throws. And we're going to be incremental. That's how we're going to beat the pass rush. Herbert, for as wonderful as he is and how tremendous that Cowboys game was, Herbert will never, ever, ever say die if you don't tell him to, right? And so if you're saying, Herbert, we got to be able to beat him deep, we got to be able to rip chunk plays, like you're going to have to hold on to the football. Justin Herbert, with like his arm falling off on one leg, like looking like the guy from Monty Python, will be like, yes, sir, right? And he'll be trying to shoot the ball down the field, and he'll just be taking too many shots. He's been contacted 193 times this season. It's more than 30 more than second place, right? And so you have to a little bit protect the guy from himself, protect the line from the pass rush, and be willing to be a quick distribution offense in this one relative to some of your previous game plans.
Every time I'm looking at a matchup with the Houston Texans, I'm just trying to come up with something. Like, what is the weakness on this team? What works against this team? What is effective? And it's funny because the last 2 years, it was always scrambling quarterbacks. So I'd always go back to the well on that, like, hey, you can scramble on them. But they've gotten better against that. It's still because of the style that they play, which is so much like man coverage and quarter. There's still opportunities to scramble, but it's tough, Ben. Like I don't look at this roster depth chart and who are you, if you're an offensive coordinator, who are you circling? Like, who are you attacking? Like, is there anyone that you feel comfortable with if you're the Chargers saying we want to get this matchup?
So because of the injuries at safety, you're seeing Miles Bryant play a decent bit, and they try to hide Miles Bryant and that nickel spot, that weak safety spot. That's a spot where you've seen teams be able to complete in man coverage, right? So if you end up getting Ladd on him because you're motioning smart and you're getting Ladd in the slot there in man coverage, or if you get Ronde Gadsden, I think that's your matchup. Henry To'oTo'o is the other player. He's linebacker 2 for them. You've seen the Texans give up a lot of explosive catches to running backs this year.
Yeah.
And again, like it's much like the scrambling thing where the season-long numbers, they're fine against scrambling. They're fine against running back targets. On like when you get into the route, when you get into the scramble, they actually give up a lot of explosives. It's just they're getting so many sacks, they're getting so many stops. You don't get to these plays very often, but you will see explosive running back completions because of To'oTo'o, who's a guy you can get after in coverage. And so to me, Greg Roman, theoretically tremendous running game designer, which I think like he's a very good one. I think sometimes he gets a little bit too much gas, but in general, very good running game designer. They're going to give you 4 down fronts. You're going to get your 21, 22 personnel stuff. You're going to get Scott Matlock in there. You're going to get Will Dissly in there. This is your like fever dream game for moving them off the ball. And then you try to get the play action pass and isolate some of those players, right? Some of those second level guys who are going to be trying to fit really hard against the run. Then you can get after them in the play action pass and fight explosive that way.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check while you're talking, but the Genti deep ball against the Raiders, who almost beat them, was against To'oTo'o, who was...
Yeah, and they got to empty and Genti's lined up as a wide receiver 1. Like, that's just, you have to get to some of these, like, specific beaters against this.
I think that's your point. Like, you're right. They sent a 5-man pressure and they're playing man. I mean, that's not, I think if the Texans were to do it all over again, you gotta. Yeah.
It's a matter of, like, when you get it, you have to hit it. It's got to be explosive. If you miss them, the Texans are just going to anaconda you. They're going to give you 2 or 3 shots a game. That's it.
forgot this was 3rd and 6. Oh my God, he just ran right by him too. Ooh,
Yeah,
good ball.
and then tracked it and then survived the sideline. Turns out Ashton Genty, and stick with me here, might not be terrible.
Interesting that they decided to use him this way now in week 17 or 16.
There's a lot about the Raiders offense that is making a lot more intuitive sense. Yeah, oh my dude, the Jack Bash thing is driving me up the wall. But yes, they are much more intuitive of an offense since the offensive coordinator change.
All right. So I'm gonna go Texans here.
Mhm.
Wow, the Chargers are favored.
Yeah, at home, but also Chargers home, question mark. Not really as much of an impact as it typically is.
Yeah, I just think we were talking about like how you could play this Texas defense. That's the best unit on the field, and I like the Chargers defense, but I really love what I've seen from Houston over the last few weeks. I know there were some ups and downs last week it was kind of a weird game against the Raiders, but I do think, to our earlier discussion, there's a lot of matchup advantages in this one that they can take advantage of.
Yeah, I think I lean Chargers. I just think that Justin Herbert's playing it at unparalleled, like just quarterback one level right now. Like I think he's got a legitimate MVP case if they're able to beat the Texans, to beat the Broncos here, right? He's been so good against pressure. They've generally played average pressure teams that got a blitz. Now it's the Texans and the Broncos. It's like, hey, you can do it against these guys. You can do it against anybody. And worth noting, Azeez Al-Shaair, Pro Bowler, did miss this game against the Raiders last week with an ankle. Expected to be back, much like Woody
I think
Marks.
he's playing in this.
Yeah. So I lean Chargers. I do Stingley's got an oblique he's playing through. The Texans are pretty kind of like late season banged up right now, where you're just like everybody's a little bit hurt. So I lean Chargers, but this is gonna be close.
Can't you just see though this with being like we open NGS 75% of the way through the game, and Justin Herbert's being pressured on 55% of dropbacks.
And it's worth remembering the last time he played this Texans defense, obviously 4 sacks, 4 interceptions. This was the postseason game that everybody watched and formed a lot of opinions off of. That's why I say Herbert will never say die, right? If they're down by 14, he'll start shooting, right? If you throw 6 picks, he doesn't care. Like that's just kind of how he's coded. And so you have to keep this on a neutral script. Running game for the Chargers, extremely important.
Yeah, I don't know. Texans offensive line, I have some marginal confidence in.
Yeah. The winner of this game is like the official, this is the dark horse AFC team, right? It's going to be exciting.
All right. So we alluded to Ravens Packers. It's good that we're split. That one is basically impossible to talk about at the moment because we don't know who's playing quarterback for either team. For the Ravens, it's probably going to be Tyler Huntley, given the way they were talking about Lamar's injury during the game, where he the many shots of him in unbelievable pain and the reports that he could barely get down the stairs suggest to me that he's not going to play in this one. And might be shut down for the season. We shall see, but he might play. I don't know. I mean, obviously, as we discussed, if Pittsburgh loses to Cleveland, then the Ravens still have something to play for because then week 18 becomes it. The Packers, so Jordan Love entered concussion protocol, took a nasty hit